right now I'm the general manager of our worldwide retail and consumer goods industry here at Microsoft. So I'm really responsible for taking our industry strategy into the market across the world. And I have teams in Asia and EMEA as well as Americas. I actually grew up though in the retail industry. I got my first retail job when I was 17 years old, folding jeans at my local Gap store. And that became a 27-year career working for the Gap.
Nice.
Later in my career, I was in their headquarters and I ran their e-commerce business for North America. And then I also ran their denim business as well. So I really was, kind of born and grew up in the retail industry. And that's where I still feel like I'm a part of it, even though I work for a technology company today.
Okay, nice. And since you're dealing with different cultures, how are you facing this new challenge of people working from their home office? Most of the companies adopted a policy where they allow the workers to work at home, and of course, this has pushed the movement from some companies to look for online and digital solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think that Microsoft tools could contribute to this business diversity, not becoming a problem for the operation with this type of, movements that are, happening around the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been interesting. Microsoft, we are a relatively remote company. So, for a lot of technology companies, working from home is somewhat of a second nature, especially if you travel a lot. You're used to being remote, on the road, working from home, working from different office spaces. But for retailers, there's been a couple of interesting issues. One is something as simple as everyone trying to dial into the company mainframe at the same time. They never realized that they would possibly have everybody dialing in at once. So trying to provide a secure connection and scale that has been a simple but very difficult problem that they needed to fix initially, just to give everybody access. And then kind of moving out from that was collaboration. How do you start to think about collaborating across your company? And if you're a retailer, you typically have your corporate or your headquarters office. They have a digital footprint within your company, but your store associates don't often have a digital footprint with the company because they work in a physical store. They don't need a kind of a digital identity. So Microsoft Teams has been really one of our key products and solutions that has allowed for that. And for the retailers that were on the journey of allowing their first line workers to have a digital kind of imprint inside the company, have really been able to collaborate all the way down to that level, between stores, between headquarters. But most of them really have been coming to us and saying, how quickly can we, one, use your tools so we can collaborate, and two, you're a company that's been working from home for a long time. Can you teach us just some of the cultural shifts that we should be thinking about when it comes to, simple things like being on camera, not being on camera? Those are all, when you're kind of faced with that for the first time, you're not used to that. Are there rules? Are there guidelines? So we've not only helped them from a technology and platform standpoint, but we've also shared with them some of our best practices as it relates to sitting in your living room or in your bedroom or in your kitchen or in your home office, and really making it okay for the dog to walk in or your kids to show up in the background of your meeting, because it's just inevitable now. That is the new normal. And so we've shared even that. We've had meetings internally where we've just invited our kids and our animals so we can kind of break down those barriers. So it started from not only products and platforms, but down to culture and best practices as well.
Okay, if you could give some specific collaboration on, you are dealing with teams in different cultures in different countries, and some of those countries are emerging countries.
Yeah.
And the behavior through technology that an advanced countries such as United States or some countries in Europe is totally different than some countries in Asia. And how would you address your main concerns? How Microsoft believes that they can create products to impact emerging countries compared to advanced countries that has already let's say a higher technology footprint in their mission.
Yeah, I would say, we've done a couple of things. One is we've launched a skilling initiative where we're offering free technical training and skilling for anyone who is learning how to operate in this new world where technology is becoming such an important way for us to connect. We've also, at the very beginning of COVID, we made Teams available and free for quite a period of time, so people could connect and could collaborate. In fact, in some emerging countries, we're seeing a leapfrogging of technology from desktop straight to mobile. And a lot of folks have access to those types of devices, and Teams runs on those types of devices. So we've definitely, between our aspiration is to over time provide skilling, but in the short term, we've made some of our products free, especially in education has been another area, and individual consumers as well.
Okay. I told you a little bit about my business, and we faced a huge transformation because since we sell products for basically house appliances and furniture, when everybody's at home, you are facing demands that before COVID, the demand was a lot lower. So once you are at your home office, you see the needs popping up all the time around your routine. So we decided recently, we used to buy products from China at ecadeiras.com, and we shifted our strategy to connect the local manufacturers to the end users. And do you believe this model, similar to Wayfair.com in America, can scale substantially in emerging economies?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think next generation actually wants to support their local economies. I think we're seeing a lot of consumer behavior driven towards even transparency in the supply chain, so they can see where products are coming from. And they care about sustainability, they care about supporting local workers, they care about fair wages. So we're seeing from our customers are asking us how to help them create more transparency in their supply chain because their consumers are starting to expect it. And so from a broad amount of reasons, so I think, yes, a lot of retail is becoming more local. And the ability for that to work at scale is going to require a platform approach. So technologies such as cloud is going to be extremely important to put suppliers and retailers' data together so they can very quickly understand and trade products and services with the end user in mind.
Okay, and let's talk about the main retail company in America, which is, from our perspective, doing an opposite process to compare to the bricks and mortars. Instead of going more online, now they decided to setting up new physical stores, like the Amazon Go, for example. So what is the future of the large retail chains? Do you think they're going to be more digital or more omni-channel? And do you think this changes from sector to sector?
I think one of the things that COVID has created is a tremendous shift from the physical store to the digital store. And in many cases, it had to, because physical stores, if you were a non-essential retailer, if you were in fashion or beauty or a department store in the United States and many parts of the world, your stores were shut down. So the only store you had was your digital store, if you had one. On the essential side of the business, the grocery stores that had to be kept open because they were supplying food, they too saw a significant shift into digital, because not everybody wanted to drive to a grocery store and walk through and put their health at risk. So we've seen this tremendous shift now into the digital space. Some companies have seen, their online business was 20% of their business. It's now 80% of their business. And we believe that as the retail stores begin to open up, a lot of them will stay in the digital space. That doesn't mean they'll be exclusively e-commerce. They'll want to use both. They'll want the convenience of shopping online, but also the convenience of going to the physical store and picking it up at curbside. So we see an omni-channel need growing and accelerating ever. We've always believed in it. We've always knew it was important, but COVID has only accelerated that. I think when you look at the sector level, I don't know if there is going to be much of a difference in sector. I think consumers get trained in one sector and they take that expectations into another sector. So I see, whether you're in grocery or furniture or fashion, you're going to need to find a way to deliver your product to your customer in the most convenient way to them, right? And there are subtle differences in that, but the customers will often switch, and we've seen this during COVID, to brands that can actually meet them where they want their products delivered and when they need it.
Okay, and if we take a deeper look into the let's say the Amazon Go, which is a benchmark for every retailer around the world, especially when they're acting at grocery. When you enter a supermarket and you have a totally different customer journey, the touch points are completely different. You collect something you want, and then the checkout, you just use your facial recognition, and then you have no contact at all with anyone. So how is Microsoft developing its products in that direction? How do you see this trend?
Yeah, I definitely think we need more compute at the edge for our retail customers, especially. Customers do want to have less friction during their shopping journey. And that just doesn't mean walking in and picking what you want and leaving and having it charged to your phone. That might be your own ability to scan items on your own mobile device. It might be the ability to check out however you want. One time you might go through the POS, the other time you might check out in a self-checkout. We're definitely seeing that more computing capability is needed in the physical store. So we're bringing products to market like our Azure Edge technology, which allows a significant amount of compute power to happen within the store, but the data still resides on the cloud, and which is really important to our customers, because regardless of where the compute has to happen, you certainly want the data to all be in one place, because if it gets siloed, you don't get the insights and the value out of it that you do when it's put together in one place.
I don't know, how can you, in Brazil, for example, or India, which is basically, we were called in the past third world countries. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is because the way we approach education is totally different than the first world countries. And one of the main assets that a tech company has is people, is developers. And in Brazil, for example, we are facing a huge problem in São Paulo specifically. There are huge fintechs being developed for banks and some other health tech companies. And we're missing a lot of these skills, these abilities available in the market to help us build more valuable technologies to the end customers. How can you collaborate using Microsoft to help education on that basis?
Yeah. Well, I would say from a platform perspective, Teams is our premier collaboration tool. So it does allow for video collaboration, file, chat. It allows for a tremendous amount, and we're working with um, educational institutions to adopt Teams for that sole purpose. In fact, we're seeing a lot of distance learning requirements um, being the necessity as COVID continues to grow. So as students are sitting home, the only way they can connect in many cases is through some online collaboration tool. We've made that available to a lot of educations during COVID at no cost, so they could very quickly scale that. So I think that's one way. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we've launched an aspiration to train, to offer free training around technology to a vast amount of folks globally. So that's another aspect of how we're trying to make our technology and capabilities and skills available, so it's more accessible to others who may not always have access to it.
Okay, so this is a very interesting way that technology is being developed, and maybe some robots in the near future, they will cover some of the labor that we have available in the market. And what is your vision about that? How are the tech companies concerned about this shift on the, let's say, the employment rates around globally, let's say?
I think we really let our customers drive what is important to them in terms of how they're trying to drive their business. And I think I would say, robotics is a very interesting and growing market, not only from, warehouse robotics to autonomous driving. There's a tremendous amount of use cases you can come with across multiple industries. Especially in a world where working closely human to human can cause transmissions of a pandemic. So I think, it will be interesting to see if there is an acceleration in robotic adoption across industries to help for the sole purpose of, in creating more health, a healthier location, healthier work environment for employees. We're obviously always talking to customers about how do we help them reduce cost, and their, robotics and automation are obviously some areas that they're looking to help do that. But I think it remains to be seen, does COVID kind of accelerate the adoption of that across multiple industries or not? I think right now what most of our customers are focused on are keeping their employees healthy, keeping their customers healthy, and making sure that they can keep their business going during a very challenging time.
Yeah, that's very nice. One of the, in my, for me, one of the main visions that I share about, I call him a guru, Satya Nadella, and he wrote a book, Hit Refresh, and he describes the quest to rediscover the Microsoft soul and imagine a better future for everyone, demonstrating that he definitely knows the responsibility that Microsoft has worldwide, not only as a business. So can you share with us what you have you learned directly from him, and what you apply in your routine? Basically, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I would say the real shift I think that he's helped me personally make is, and if you read the book, you really get a good sense of this, is it's changing your mindset to a growth mindset. It's moving from this place where you have to know it all to be willing to be a learn it all. And that means acknowledging that you don't have all the answers. It means, but acknowledging that you're on a lifelong journey of learning. And when we take that mindset even to our customers, and we don't try to have all the answers, we acknowledge that there may be issues, there may be problems they're trying to solve, and we can bring our technology and we can work together to try to solve these. But um, starting with from a place of wanting to learn versus a place of trying to have all the answers really does change your culture. It really does break down barriers and allows us to stay very open and use more listening, our listening skills versus our talking and telling skills, because we are seeking to understand and we are seeking to try to learn more. So that's been the greatest shift for me. It's why I joined this company, was because of his belief that if we truly were going to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, we needed to approach that from a position of wanting to learn.
Okay, that's very thoughtful. Yeah, very nice. I have some quick questions that I would like to address.
Okay.
Have you been to Brazil before?
I have not. I was actually supposed to be going to Brazil 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. I had a ticket to go to
Okay.
Sao Paulo for the first time. And then when COVID-19 hit the United States, we actually all canceled our travel plan. So I was this 2 weeks away from going.
Okay. I believe that this is one of the regions that you also see on your, let's say, your portfolio. So if you had a challenge to lead a large retailer in Brazil, uh, what would be the long-term tactics that you would invest in?
I would invest in customer experience. I think if you go where the customer wants to go, I think that's your best chance. One thing that has happened, and you mentioned a very large retailer in the United States that has products at a very low price that they can get to you overnight, right? And I think if you start to think of yourself as being in the customer experience business rather than the product business, you might start to invest in capabilities, technologies, in business processes and people that achieve what your customers want. Versus trying to win on product. I think product has become now it's the entry of retail. You now have to out experience your competition. And the companies that we see that are investing in those spaces, that really are investing in omni-channel, they're investing in the types of services like in-store pickup, curbside delivery. The customers are paying them for that. And they're willing to switch from one retailer to another because of the experience, because the proliferation of products and services worldwide has just exploded in the last 10 years. So I think if I was running a large retailer, I would say invest in your customer, invest in your experience, and make sure that you're able to be where they want you to be.
Okay, and as a tech company, how do you guys merge the supply chain, for example, when everything needs to be delivered? And the main challenge is how I get the products closer to the end user, because the last mile will cost less. And that type of action will bring a huge efficiency to the entire chain. And how are you see this drive for the Microsoft products in the future?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges we learned, and a lot of our customers learned during COVID, was because their supply chain did not have much agility, their stores were closed and their inventory was literally stranded in their physical stores while their e-commerce site was running out of inventory. So they couldn't share their inventory across their channels. And because of that, much needed inventory that could have been sold through their e-commerce was physically stranded inside of a store. So coming out of that, we're seeing a myriad of things happening with our customers, with us, which is, Microsoft, can you help me see my supply chain left to right? Can I have my inventory not sitting on-prem and stuck in silos, but managed in the cloud, where regardless of where my customer is ordering from, I can get access to that data? That's been one point. we're seeing a lot of our customers, as they're reopening their stores, they're turning several of them into dark stores, or they're creating local warehouses closer to the customer where they can fulfill more quickly. So in the case of a large shutdown again, because we're seeing shutdowns now start to go almost by state, by county, by city, it's not as broadly by country anymore, they can very quickly move from one warehouse that might be shut down to another that's still open. So they need that agility in the supply chain, and they're using their store network or some of their store networks to create and light up new nodes in the supply chain. I'd say those are probably the two biggest. And then the last one might be just starting to understand where the interruptions coming in my supply chain. Again, as we saw just a few months ago, India reopened, and then India had to shut down again. And if you were sourcing out of India, at one point your supply chain was back in business, and then it was shut down again. So how quickly you can pivot your sourcing from one country to the next requires a tremendous amount of agility, and it requires a tremendous amount of consolidation of your data from your suppliers, from your stores, even from your customers. So you know where the demand is going to be, and you can start to allocate your inventory there. So the role we're playing is a cloud role to put their data into one place, so they can very quickly understand where the interruptions in the supply chain and make a decision around what actions to take.
And this is an interesting line of reasoning. Brazil has just 5 to 6% of online penetration compared to the entire retail. And maybe in America, it is triple that number. So maybe around 16 to 18%. And during COVID, Brazil is almost, this last June, we doubled. We were, the online was 12% compared to 6 in the past. And I saw some research on America that the online penetration went up to 25%. So a lot of companies are investing in this digital transformation. Do you believe the things are still going to grow to a next level, or you think it's going to drop a little bit, but never at the initial stage as they were in the past?
Yeah, we're seeing upwards of 30, 40, 50% of business actually moving to e-commerce. And what's really been interesting about that is a lot of companies weren't prepared for that scalability, and they found that they hit the limits of their e-commerce platform. In some cases, they couldn't even take the traffic or the order volume that was coming from their customers because their platform just didn't scale that way. As stores reopen, I do think we'll see some shift in business back to stores, but I don't think it will be where it was. I think a tremendous amount of the traffic and channel shift that we've seen, at least to where they're starting their shopping journey, is going to happen in the e-commerce space. Now, where that product gets delivered still might be a physical store. I still might want to shop online for groceries, but I want to drive down the street and pick them up at the curb. In a pre-COVID world, I might have done that entire shopping journey in a physical store, but now I've changed. So we think the blending of these channels is accelerating because of COVID, and I don't see a deceleration in that for quite some time, because it is really the way now that retailers can stay connected to their customers, even when their stores aren't open.
Okay, so you are based on one of the main venture capital and private equity ecosystems on earth. So if you were to bet or invest in two retail sectors, what would they be and why?
I would say, from a COVID standpoint, what we've seen in terms of consumer trends, consumers are spending more time at home. They are actually doing more cooking at home. So I think, we've seen this essential and non-essential kind of carving up of the industry. So I think in the short term, those that are sitting in the essential side, such as home improvement and grocery, are going to fare very well. But at the same time, in parts of the world, we're almost seeing kind of this uptick in shopping on the non-essential side. So the beauty, the fashion, once those companies start to reopen. So I don't think the question around category, I would be betting on any company or investing any company that's truly understands its customer, truly understands how to service its customer the way the customer expectations are today. That's where I'd place my bets. I say it would be regardless of category.
Okay, that's very, very nice. If you would give some, let's say, suggestions to an entrepreneur, like myself, for example, that are acting in the e-commerce sector, what hints would you give?
I would start with knowing what your data is and where you're keeping it. What we're seeing in all industries today is this explosion of digital data. As customers navigate your e-commerce site, as they interact with your marketing, they're leaving almost a digital footprint about what they're doing and where they're spending time, what they're interested in. And the more that you can understand your data through analytics, maybe using machine learning and some artificial intelligence to truly understand your customer, the faster you can do that. And always keep an eye on your data, where it's residing, different types of data that you have, making sure you're keeping it together and not siloing it. So you always have that opportunity to mix up that data and get the insights you need, whether it's your product data, your marketing data, your supply chain data. All of that is very valuable in understanding your consumer behavior. And then there's third-party data, weather, pandemic outbreaks, all of that also impacts your shoppers and impacts your customers. So I always say, think about the data, think about what data you're collecting, how you're using it in a responsible way, and making sure you're always thinking about getting the insights you need to make better business decisions, because there's a lot of value there.
Okay, and as you said, during the customer journey, you have so many different touch points where you collect data. And recently, we had some privacy problems with Twitter, with Facebook, and even Instagram. And how is Microsoft dealing with this software development, protecting its customers from this type of occurrences?
Yeah, our motto with our retail customers has always been your customers, your data. So we don't use our customers' data. In fact, we work very hard to help them protect and secure their data. We also encourage them, and I think a relationship between a retail and a customer has to be a symbiotic one around permission-based usage of data. So our position has been, our role is when our customers' data is in our cloud, is in Azure, our job is to make sure that's secure. And at the same time, our customers' job, we believe, is to build the relationships with their consumers around the usage, the requirements, and the permissions on how they use their data.